Welcome to the Touch MBA Admissions Podcast. Do you need help figuring out which schools to apply to or how to get into the world's top MBA programs? Hey, you're not alone. Join thousands of others on this podcast and on our site, touchmba.com, as they seek the admissions edge. And now, here's your host, Darren Joe.
Hi guys, this is Darren and welcome to the Touch MBA podcast. Before we get into this week's episode with the Georgetown McDonough School of Business, I wanted to make one quick announcement. It's the middle of July and the fall application season is right around the corner. If you're still having difficulty figuring out which schools to apply to, we can help. Go to touchmba.com, click on Get School Selection Help, and tell us a bit more about yourself. We'd be happy to drop a short list of programs for you to consider based on your profile, your career goals, and our extensive knowledge of the top 50 MBA programs in the world. This service is completely free, so go head over to touchmba.com and we look forward to hearing from you. And now, on to the episode. Welcome everybody to the Touch MBA podcast. This is your host Darren, and I'm really excited to have our next guest on the show, Miss Shari Hubert, who is the Associate Dean of MBA Admissions at Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business. And Shari just joined Georgetown in January this year, but before she came, she has recruited for the Peace Corps, Citi, GE, and she has also attended Harvard Business School back in 2000. So I'm sure she has a lot of experience in the recruiting area as well, and she's been through a top-notch MBA. So thank you for your time, Shari, and welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Darren. It's a pleasure. We're very excited to have been invited to participate and to share more information about our program, Georgetown University McDonough School of Business. And your listeners hopefully will enjoy the podcast.
What makes the Georgetown MBA unique?
It's a good question, Darren. I would say there are maybe four things that really differentiate our program. Our Jesuit heritage, we were founded in 1789. Our DC location, we're in the heart of what some would say is one of the most dynamic cities in the United States, Washington, D.C., with the nexus of business and politics. We have a very collaborative environment, and that really stems from our Jesuit values. There's a Jesuit or a Latin phrase, curus personalis, and really what it means is caring for the whole person. Really what you'll find is, our values resonate throughout the student experience in that we have a very collaborative environment. There's access to faculty. Faculty care about, the success of our students. Students care about the success of their peers. There are, tons of examples where students will put on workshops and sessions for each other to help with, say, accounting or Excel-based skill development and training. We also have, I would say, one of the oldest traditions of a global business experience. There are many schools out there now that offer some type of global experience, but Georgetown was really the first top business school to provide a structured global experience for its MBA students, and it's mandatory. And we can get into more about what that global experience is like, but I would say those are really what truly differentiates us. And then lastly, our new dean, David Thomas, really talks about research to impact practice. So all of our learnings that a student would experience is really about how do they apply it in practice. It's not just for learning's sake, it's not just for theory's sake, but we really want our alums to graduate and to go on to have impact on both business and society in a very meaningful way.
Yeah, and I just read an article where the author interviewed Dean David Thomas, and you guys just launched a new curriculum in 2012, correct?
That's correct, yes. The dean was, one of the themes that you're going to hear about, or will resonate with Georgetown is this notion of being bold and innovative. And the dean came on board his first year and was really bold in terms of the charge that he presented to the faculty and the staff. And that was within 1 year's time to totally rehaul the curriculum. And he did just that. So our new curriculum, it's been 1 year now that we've put that in place. So our first years, who are now rising second years, have experienced that. And what it consists of is initially, when you first start, we have what we call a structure of global industries. It's a 3-week, I would say, intensive experiential opportunity for students right before they start in their core work. And it really provides an opportunity for students to understand, how do you enter a market? How do new industries develop across the globe? So they take a particular industry in a particular country, and they determine, what are the economic factors that they have to consider? What are the, regulatory or governmental factors? What are the cultural factors that have to be contended with? What are the marketing factors? So how does one enter into a new market or new industry in a very global way? And it's very intense. It's team-based. At the same time that they're doing this, it's, I think 11 or 12-hour days. At the same time they're doing this, they're also starting their accounting basics. And so, very early on, you get the basic fundamentals in accounting, which will really set you up and provide a good foundation throughout the rest of your core. But you're also really immersed in an experience that allows you to understand all the dynamics that are at play when it comes to global business. So after that, you then go into your core work. And some of the new aspects of our curriculum include integrated team-taught courses. So we have one that's called Leadership and Social Intelligence. So co-taught by 2 professors from different disciplines. So it's really about how do you integrate these 2 very different topics so that you really understand exactly how leaders think, how they have to act, how they apply their learnings. We also have more robust global experiences, and just by virtue of the fact that our 33 to 35% of our class are international students, you also get that integrated aspect of global on a day-to-day basis. We have, one of the biggest changes really kind of having accounting up front, but then you also have your core finance, your core marketing. We have a great course called Analytical Problem Solving, and a number of other courses that really help to make sure that our students have a really sound grounding in the traditional MBA curriculum. It's 12 weeks as opposed to the shorter modules that we had in the past. So again, it allows our students to really absorb the information that they're learning. And that was one of the biggest feedbacks that we got, is that the modules previously were too short, and so they weren't really digesting the information in order to apply it to the next course. Finally, we have the capstone, the second year capstone course called Global Experience. And that's really when students are able to it's kind of full circle, right? So at the beginning, they have the SGI, they don't really understand, but they're immersed in kind of developing a new industry in a market. But at the end, they actually can take all of their learnings throughout their core first 2 years and apply it to an actual company. A multinational could be a small, medium, large company, for-profit, nonprofit. It really runs the gamut. These are faculty-led projects and assignments with organizations, and they take a live problem that organization's having. They break up in teams of 4 to 5, and it's usually across 4 to 5 countries. For instance, we just went to, our evening program students are going to Hong Kong, Istanbul, Lima, Peru. We've had students in our full-time program go to Brazil, to Ho Chi Minh, to Beijing as well. So it's really countries around the globe. They work on these live deals and live projects, and then they do that actually virtually, right? So they really simulate a true international global working environment, right? They have translators if they need them. They're working at different time across different time zones, right? Depending on where the client is. And then at the end, they actually take a week and they go to that particular country and deliver the presentation and the final kind of product to the client. And they are then able to also experience the cultural aspects kind of real time.
Wow, it sounds like it's a really busy and active time at Georgetown.
It's very intense. Yeah, I mean, one of some of the adjectives you hear students talk about in terms of our program is rigorous, intense, as well as collaborative, right? So, it's a dynamic environment that we're trying to provide for our students.
Yeah, if we could talk a little bit more about that collaborative culture that you mentioned as one aspect of the program that is very unique. I saw in the school's mission statement that Georgetown is trying to educate principled, ethical leaders with a global mindset, ready to serve business and society, and that is such a big part of Georgetown and the MBA program. Could you just explain to us a little bit more about that aspect?
Sure. So yes, it's like I mentioned, it's a very collaborative environment. It really does stem from our Jesuit values. The dean is extremely concerned about making sure that we produce, alums that have gone through a transformational experience. We want to transform our students so that they in turn can transform the world. And we are very much concerned about making sure that they make principled and ethical decisions. It's not just about the bottom line, but it's not just about what you do, but how you get things done as well. And so there are a couple of courses that we offer. And one is that leadership, principled leadership and social intelligence. We also have a center now for ethics that students can get involved with as well. And so we try and infuse it through different aspects of the curriculum, but also the overall MBA experience to ensure that our alums really, right? So that our students, as well as who will end up being alums, really understand that it's really about doing things the right way. And like I said, a lot of this really does stem from our wanting to live our values.
Great. And why should candidates get their MBA in Washington, D.C., of all places in the U.S.?
Well, it's an international city, right? We have embassies from every single country here. The World Bank's here. We have other kind of international agencies exist here. Global businesses. Every Fortune 100 company or Fortune 500 company has some governmental office here, right? Because they recognize the fact that we are at the nexus of both business and policy. And we have one of the best job markets in the country, low unemployment, high average incomes. DC is one of the most well-educated cities in the world, which makes a difference. And then we're consistently cited by multiple sources as a great city to live in. You'll find that it's a very vibrant young culture here as a result of so much of the politics that happen. And then, one of the things that people may not realize is that DC has a thriving entrepreneurship community as well. And so, you'll see lots of startups, both in the technology space, but also in other kinds of industries and sectors. And I think one of the things our students benefit from is because we are at the nexus of business and policy, our students have access to these policymakers and leaders on a day-to-day basis. We have one center, it's called the Center for Financial Markets and Policy. And one of our professors, who's well renowned in her field, regularly provides briefings to Congress on the Hill, and she will invite students to attend and to sit in on those sessions, right? So, how exciting is it for a student who's interested in the financial services or in banking or in that industry to be able to see exactly how the conversations are happening in terms of the regulatory impacts of the financial markets and that kind of thing. So it's really a dynamic city for anyone, not just folks who are interested in policy. And that's a kind of a myth that I'd love to make sure your listeners kind of dispel. We're a traditional MBA program, who have students who go on to careers in politics, but also careers in finance, investment banking, consulting, marketing, all the traditional areas and industries that your top business schools will produce.
Great. And have there been any new exciting developments aside from the curriculum change at Georgetown?
Sure. Yeah, I would say two of the things that we're most excited about, as well as our partners program. So we recognize students who choose to come to DC and may have spouses or partners, that they're making a decision together, and that they, because we are one of the cities with highest employment, as well as really smart, engaging individuals, those partners probably have careers in themselves that they want to continue. And so we started to offer a program. We worked in conjunction with our Career Services Center to develop what we're calling a partners program. And it provides the same types of career services, counseling and strategies and resources and support that we provide to our MBA students. We're now providing to their spouses and partners for those people who are relocating to DC. And we think that's a great differentiator and a true support and greater benefit even for couples who are deciding to pursue their MBA here.
That's the first time I've ever heard of such a program like that. And how many partners are you allowed to have?
Well, I mean,
I'm kidding.
I mean, it's for students who, are relocating. They may have a spouse or a partner who also has a career or wants to find employment. And, we're not guaranteeing that we will find them a job, but we will make available to them the resources that we make available to our students to help them help themselves find some employment. We also have a very increasingly active partners club on campus that would also provide support for the spouses and partners who accompany their MBA spouse to school here. And then the second big new development is we just became a new member of an organization called the Consortium. It's probably more well known here in the United States, but it's a consortium, now 18 schools, that provide full fellowships to individuals who make a commitment to understanding and impacting diversity. And so what you'll find is individuals across all different top business schools who want to pursue their MBA, but they also recognize the importance of diversity in the scheme of making sure that our the MBA population, the MBA pie overall, is as diverse as it possibly can be. And we're very honored. There are other great institutions in that consortium. Like I said, there are 18 schools. They don't always add schools, so we're very fortunate to have been added this year. And so we're in a great network of additional schools and can provide additional scholarships now for our students here in the U.S. who are U.S. citizens.
How many students get those consortium scholarships?
Right, it varies by school and program, but there are some schools who provide up to 20 or so fellowships. There are some schools who provide up to minimum is at least 5 though. But the caveat, it is for U.S. citizens. But across the board, any individual who can demonstrate a commitment to diversity.
Wow, that's a great opportunity. And we do have a number of listeners from the U.S., so I'm sure they'll appreciate that. And I'll be sure to link to the consortium and as well as your partners program in the show notes of the podcast so people can get there quickly. If we could talk a little bit more about the admissions process at Georgetown, what type of candidate are you looking for?
Sure. Darren, I love this question, right? Because I think that the admissions process is 2 ways. Students are definitely looking for the right fit for them, but we also, as an institution, want the kinds of individuals that we feel who will become alumni, who will uplift our brand, continue to be great brand stewards. And so we feel those individuals are folks who want to make an impact on both business and society. They are as you mentioned, principal leaders who can demonstrate that it's not just about what you do, but how you get things done. We want individuals who can demonstrate and who possess executive presence. They're smart, they're critical thinkers, students who are prepared to participate in the classroom and fit our classroom dynamic. They must go beyond simply just receiving knowledge to being a strong and confident participant in the learning process, in the knowledge sharing process. And that really stems from, our classroom. The dynamic is very interactive. We use a lot of cases, and so you really have to be prepared to engage. We want individuals who demonstrate cultural awareness and sensitivity. They don't necessarily have to have had a lot of international experience prior to coming, but we want them to be open and understand the value of global business and the fact that there is this, value to understanding and appreciating other cultures. We'd like to have someone who at least has that interest in global business. And then someone who will make Georgetown proud throughout, as I mentioned it before, someone who will make Georgetown proud throughout their lifetime as an active and engaged alumnus. It's really important for our family, it's really important to our value set, and it's really important to the overall alumni network.
There's such an emphasis on values in a number of those traits you mentioned. And so I think a number of candidates might be saying or thinking, well, how can I demonstrate that in an application? You never want to say, I have great values, take me as a candidate, right? It's not as obvious as that. So, would you have any recommendations for how people can show, that they are principled, that they're interested in business and society?
Mm-hmm. I would say, prospects and alumni should take a look at what do they do outside of their work experience, right? What are they doing in their community? What's their belief system? And how has that been demonstrated in action, either in the work environment or outside the work environment? Really think about your extracurricular activities, the organizations that you're involved in. They also are a reflection of what you believe in and what you feel is important to you, right? And so they can be a very concrete way of demonstrating your value set. We find a lot of students who want to have some way of marrying both the business and the, say, social enterprise. There was one example of a student who's very interested. He was involved. He was there during Katrina, and was impacted by that. He went to undergrad at Xavier University, and he started tutoring and mentoring young kids in the New Orleans environment in the aftermath, and he saw how much they lacked kind of access to technology. His really goal in pursuing his MBA was to develop long-term a charter school that focused on technology. And he was able to demonstrate he didn't have the education reform background, but he had the technology background. He was able to communicate and articulate the fact that because of his experience having gone through and been part of the aftermath of Katrina, that really solidified in him, why, his desire, his passions for why he wanted to accomplish whatever he wanted to accomplish. So a lot of times people can, tell us what you want to do, but help us understand where does that come from? And that can come from personal experiences, family experiences, cultural experiences, community experiences. There's a lot of different places that people can tap into to truly demonstrate in a credible way their value set.
Thanks, Shari. Those are some great tips there. Can you also tell us what happens between the time an applicant submits an application to when he or she hears back from you? I know your school has 3 deadlines, but yeah, if you could just walk us through that process.
Sure. First of all, let me just say it's a holistic assessment process ranging from, us looking at recommendations to an interview to your essays. So there's not one thing or one particular aspect of the application that really overrides the other. We really look at everything in conjunction. We interview 100% of our students who are admitted. And the interview really helps us learn more about each individual applicant and helps applicants decide their fit with McDonough. All applicants have direct contact information for our admissions advisor who can help them navigate the process after they apply. So if they have questions, they can always go to their admissions advisor, and they will be assigned an admissions advisor at the point in which they apply. And if they have follow-on questions or information or materials, they can always contact their admissions advisor. And that person really helps to facilitate introductions to other students, to alumni, and answer any questions that may arise throughout the process. So what they can expect is they apply, they will, immediately hear back that their application's been, received and that's complete. And so one of the things they really want to make sure is that when they do apply, they, as much as possible, try and submit a completed application the very first time. Right? And now because we have rounds, they may apply at the beginning, so our first round is probably going to be around October, say the beginning of October. They may apply in September. They won't hear from us until the deadline of that first round, right? Because we're waiting for everyone else to actually apply as well. So we start our process at the beginning of the deadline of each round. And that's when we decide, who we'll invite for an interview. We'll make sure that all of their application materials are complete. We have folks who read. It's a committee-based decision. So we have our officers will read the files, they'll read the essays, the recommendations, they read every single thing in that file. And then we come together and we talk about each candidate that we're considering admitting. The interview is extremely important as well because it gives us that high touch element. We do our interviews as much as possible, either in person or via Skype, so that we can, gauge and see people's reactions and body language, in addition to what they say, kind of how they say what they say as well.
And who conducts those interviews?
Primarily the admissions staff will conduct them, but there are some times in which students may conduct them or alumni.
Great. And that personal advisor that each applicant has, those are current MBA students in the program?
No, those are admissions officers.
Oh, those are admissions officers.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they are admissions officers, exactly. But we do have what we call student ambassadors, and they work with our admissions office. They're selected by the admissions office. They actually have to apply their graduate assistantships that MBA students can apply to, and then they work maybe 10 to 20 hours a week with admissions to really help to make sure that applicants and prospects understand the process. They can share their own experience as a student. They also help us provide feedback.
Great. And do candidates have a better chance if they apply in that first round versus the third round?
The tricky question of which round to apply to, huh?
Yes.
I would not say that they're disadvantaged, based on which round they apply to. We apply the same criteria in terms of our decisioning across all three rounds. However, if you're interested in being considered for a scholarship, I would encourage you to apply in the earlier rounds, either round one or round two. Because the scholarships really are based on, availability and it's probably much more competitive in those first two rounds. So you really do want to try and increase your chances by applying in either round one or round two. And then also applying early gives, applicants the maximum amount of time to weigh different MBA options and offers as well.
Yes, and does Georgetown have a minimum GMAT score that candidates must get?
No, we do not have a minimum GMAT score. What we do have is, a range, so the 80% range, and most schools will have that as well. So what I would encourage individuals to do is to look at every school and look at where their 80% range is. And you really do want to try and fall in within that 80% range. If you are, looking just to get in, but you don't really necessarily want to be competitive for scholarships, and you want to make sure you're squarely in that 80% range, but maybe you can be on the lower end. If you really want to be competitive for scholarships, you need to be on the higher end of that 80% range. But, being within the range in and of itself will give you a good litmus test in terms of how competitive you are compared to other applicants.
Great. I really appreciate that direct advice to candidates. So definitely, if you want to improve your scholarship chances, aim for a higher GMAT. Just to repeat that point. And what three things would you advise to applicants so that they can improve their chances of getting into, school like McDonough?
Sure. I would say, look at their application objectively, being honest about the weaknesses, or use the optional essay to identify any issues and tell us what they're doing to resolve them or to solve them, right? So being open and really kind of self-aware about that. I would say connect the dots, right? Where have you been? Where are you going? And how are you going to make that happen by using and taking advantage of an MBA from McDonough School? Be sure to be consistent on this point, both in the essays as well as the interview at the same time, right? And then candidates should not be able to submit the same application from multiple schools. So show us that you've thought through everything and explain how you fit into our culture, right? Otherwise, you've missed a really great opportunity. And believe me, we as admissions officers can tell when someone's just kind of cut and paste between schools' essays. The other thing I would encourage people to do, I'm sorry to interrupt, the other thing I would encourage people to do is to, if applicants are unhappy with their score, their GMAT score, that they should retest. They should go ahead and try and retake it. We take the highest total composite score. So it's only to their advantage to take it again to try and see if they can increase that score. So
even if a candidate takes the GMAT 4 or 5 times, you won't hold that against the candidate.
It's so interesting, Darren. I was just at another conference on Saturday, and this very question came up. I would say that if a candidate, like I said, we take the overall total highest composite score. However, if you are taking it 4, 5, 6 times, 10 times, it's something that we will take note of, right? Because for us, it is a little bit of a red flag, especially it depends on maybe how much you increase each time. And it may give us a sense that, okay, this person may need a little bit more preparation or support on the, either the quant or the verbal side. So it's not something that's going to be a deal breaker, but it is something that we will take note of.
And in terms of financing the MBA, could you let us know what percentage of your class gets scholarships and what the average scholarship amounts are?
Sure. Approximately 25% of our class receive scholarships. And then the mean scholarship or the average scholarship amount is about $21,566. So, some folks get full scholarships, some folks get, less than that, but on the average, it's about that. 76% of all full-time MBA students receive some form of financial aid, though, and I think that's important for your listeners to know. And our mean financial aid package is $51,724.
And are those merit-based scholarships, or do students have a separate application?
So the scholarships are awarded on an academic merit basis. Many factors are considered in the scholarship selection, including a candidate's profile, the funding pool, right? So how much is totally available to give out, where students are relative to their peers. And that's another reason why it's to your benefit to apply in the earlier rounds. But they are academic merit-based scholarships as opposed to need-based scholarships. But all candidates are considered for scholarships, international as well as domestics. Students are all considered for scholarships. They do not need to go through an additional application process. And because scholarships are merit-based, applicants should ensure that they're competitive through their work experience, the test scores, their ability to articulate the value. So the same things that they are doing to get entrance into the program, those are the same factors that we consider in whether or not someone, merits a scholarship.
Crystal clear. And are there any loan options for international students at Georgetown?
Yeah, it's a hard question to answer. There's no single solution, and every student program is different. I would suggest that international students speak with our financial aid office or alumni of the program as well, to which they're applying, because I know that there are alums who have been very, innovative in trying to figure out where these loan options might occur. But it's challenging, I think. Most loans, from U.S. banks require international students to definitely have a co-signer, and some even require that they have a Social Security number, which I know can be a little challenging. So I think the best bet is for any of your listeners to contact our financial aid office. We also have an Office of International Programs, and they help with the whole visa process and work authorization process once a student is admitted and decides to accept our offer. And so they also may have some information, but I think the best option would be our financial aid office. I would also encourage students to speak with their employers to see if the employers would provide any kind of sponsorship for their MBAs.
And on that note of visas for international students, do you know how long international students can stay on a student visa in the U.S.?
Yes, students have the right to extend their time in the U.S. for up to 1 year of practical training upon graduation.
Great. And so, every MBA applicant is always concerned about getting a job, a great job that they want, that they dream about after, attending a top MBA program. And so what can you say to applicants who are concerned, in this tough economy about getting jobs after graduating from the McDonough School of Business?
At Georgetown, I'd say each international student has an assigned career coach who's an industry specialist in their field, and that person provides access to the students in a very team-based environment. They have their international career advisors, so folks who are international students, they have their own specialized career advisor who really focuses on international students and what's important to them and the challenges that they might be going through in terms of employment options. And those international advisors conduct workshops and programming specifically designed to enable an international job search. There's also a business development specialist on staff here, and they specialize in building global employer partnerships. So we're always looking for additional international, multinational organizations who are looking for international talent and encouraging them to take a look at Georgetown as a place to recruit students. And one of the highlights of what we provide in our career services is we have a partnership with Asade Business School. So Georgetown Asade, we co-sponsor a global career conference and expo every year. We've done it now for the past 3 years. And it allows international students from the top 30 MBA programs in the U.S. to meet with employers who are looking for global talent. The event will be held on November the 22nd for this coming cycle. And last year we had 27 employers as diverse as L'Oreal, Citi, the World Bank, and GE who attended the event. And we had over 350 students present from top MBA programs.
And what percentage of your international students stay in the U.S. to work after graduating?
Yeah, for the class of 2012, 71% of international students obtained positions in the U.S. Historically, most international students wish to stay in the U.S. upon graduation, but then may want to do something longer term that's back in their home country. So we really do try and work with our students to ensure that we try and help them meet their goals of finding opportunities that are here in the U.S. We advocate that students conduct what we call a two-pronged approach to their job search. when they're here in the program. So one is, start your search with a local campaign in the U.S., right, and a home-based campaign at the same time. And this approach ensures success as a result of a defined fallback. So you have a fallback strategy, right? So it might be a little bit more work, but it really allows you to make sure that you hedge yourself. So you work with your advisor to find opportunities in the U.S., but also at the same time, make sure that you're looking at opportunities back at home as well.
And every student gets an advisor, a career advisor at Georgetown?
Yep, every student. They'll get a functional coach as well as an industry coach, or there are some students who quite frankly don't know what they want to do. I mean, they're career switchers, or they think they want to do something, they enter the program and they totally change their mind. So we have coaches also that help students kind of think through where is the best fit for them based on their skills as well as their passions.
Sure, having gone through the MBA process yourself, and having seen now your students at Georgetown, what would you advise students who are trying to land a great job after getting their MBA? What advice would you give them if you had them right in front of you? They're about to start. They have 2 years in front of them. What would you tell them to focus on?
What I would say is, when I started my MBA, I was a career switcher. So I had done 5 years of pharmaceutical sales and marketing at Merck. Right after business school, I did consulting at the Boston Consulting Group. But within those 2 years of time in my program, I don't necessarily know that I took the time to really think about where my passions and my skills lie. So I kind of followed the herd mentality. And so I would actually caution students to do that. I would say, take this 2 years. It's 2 years that you really have to explore, right? To really figure out what you're good at, where your passions lie, and don't necessarily be so concerned about following that herd mentality, doing what you think others are doing, if you really feel as though that's not your best path. I would also say definitely take advantage of that internship, right? It is the best way to get your foot in the door, especially if you're a career switcher, because the great thing about the MBA is it kind of resets you, right? It resets your career. You can be doing something totally different than what you were doing before, but what you really need is that internship to prove yourself.
Listening to your answer, I think that the more you can look at what you really want to do and what you're passionate about before you start the MBA, the more you'll be able to really take advantage of all the opportunities it has to offer.
That is so true, Darren, because, as soon as you hit the ground, your first day, you hit the ground running fast. And our Career Services Center, they have so many resources and so much support. They start working with students who have accepted our offer in the summer before they even start. So, if you're right, if you can take that opportunity in the summer before you even start to think through these questions that you're going to have for yourselves, you're going to be in that much better position once school starts, that you can really focus, right, and not necessarily be as scattered in your thinking, and be better able to prioritize, because you're going to have a lot coming your way.
Great. And you mentioned that a lot of Georgetown students would be happy to talk to prospects. What is the best way for candidates to contact students and alumni?
Yeah, I would say the best way is to contact our admissions office, and our admissions staff can connect prospective students and applicants to alumni, to current students, and I can provide you with a couple of our URLs as well. Our website, I would say, going directly to our website as well is a great way to connect with our staff. I would encourage them to join our prospect Facebook group, Georgetown MBA Prospects. Follow Dean Thomas in MSB on Twitter. His Twitter tag is @ProfThomas. I would say use LinkedIn to connect with alumni of the program. LinkedIn is becoming a really great way to make connections and to see who's out there that is attached to the schools that you're interested in. Georgetown has alumni clubs as well around the world, and events around the world. And so see if there are any upcoming events in the city in which you reside. And then, ask other people within your own network if they have had exposure or know of anyone as well. I'd say the best place is initially the admissions office. I recently had a prospect that I was talking to on the phone, and he's a very early prospect. He was a physician. He was thinking about maybe adding on an MBA, but he really didn't understand or know kind of what would he really do as a physician with that MBA. And so after we got off the phone, I said, let me see if I can find some students in our program that may have a similar profile as yourself. I immediately went to the president of our Student Government Association, our evening program, and she within 5 minutes emailed me back and had a name of one of her classmates who was in the healthcare industry and who also owned his own business and was, more than happy to talk to this particular prospect. What I find and what I'm impressed with is that, students here really enjoy their experience and are more than happy to share that with others. Both the good things, the realistic things. And so you'll really get a good, well-rounded perspective and an honest and candid perspective from our students and our alumni and our staff. Because at the end of the day, we really want you to come here if you feel like it's the right fit.
And we've covered so much over the course of this podcast, but, is there anything else about the Georgetown MBA that you wish more candidates knew about?
I would say, just the fact that we have an amazing alumni network, right? So students from McDonough have access not only to the McDonough alumni network, but the entire Georgetown University network. And Darren, how global and prestigious that is. So over 165,000 Georgetown alumni strong. I would also want folks to know that, students at McDonough find jobs. 89% in the class of 2012 accepted a job within 3 months of graduation. We have a strong return on investment. Our average salary for students entering the program was around $53,000. When they graduate, they basically doubled their salary and are reaching an average of $99,799. We offer a well-rounded management degree, right? So, we are the program for people who are interested in those traditional industries like finance. So a student who's interested in Wall Street or the consulting track, right? Or the nonprofit track or the policy track. We really offer a very well-rounded degree. And then we have a variety of research centers and initiatives that I think also really help to underscore how we put research in practice, such as the Financial Markets and Public Policy. We have the Business and Public Policy Center. We have an entrepreneurship initiative. We have a real estate initiative. And we have a global social enterprise initiative as well. We also have an interesting consumer research kind of lab as well. There's a lot of study on markets and ethics.
And Shari, how you mentioned all these different centers and initiatives. How do students get involved in these centers?
Well, students are involved by virtue of, raising their hand. A lot of these centers offer various fellowships in terms of, having graduate assistantships or, working with faculty directly, in their practice or area of interest. We have women's leadership in global business, which all women students are automatically, involved in and a part of. And they all offer different ways, direct ways for our students to learn about and participate in the cutting edge business research and practice. Like I mentioned, the great example is that we have our faculty members, invite our students to take part in these events and these seminars and these series, or go to Capitol Hill to be a fly on the wall, listening in on congressional briefings. Some of the research is also integrated into the classroom in terms of our case studies, and the work that the faculty is doing in the centers then gets kind of carried over into the classroom in terms of the work that they do with students and the cases that they share as well.
And finally, what 3 words would you use to describe the program?
That was a hard question, Darren.
Well, MBA applications are very difficult, right? It's always, what 3 words would your friends use to describe you? So I want to put the business schools in the hot seat.
I love it. So after much kind of thought and, in talking to my peers, I would say bold, socially relevant, and global. And, it's interesting because the Jesuit charge is go forth and set the world on fire. And we really want, our students, our alumni, we really see our students as really alumni, right? From the very beginning, from the moment they walk into our school. And we really want to equip them with the knowledge and the passion and the ethics to be, principal leaders and to really set the world on fire, right? So bold, socially relevant, and global.
Great. Thank you so much for being on the show, Shari.
Thank you, Darren, for inviting me.